Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Tyson Fury's promoters have been very active in the media in recent days, and one of the messages that is quite clear is they want Dillian Whyte, who is the current WBC mandatory, to just get out of the way. And that's despite the WBC recently reaffirming that his mandatory shot will be held and next for Fury if Fury beats Whyte, and obviously if Whyte gets past Alexander Povetkin August the 22nd. And Fury's promoters as well, and we'll touch on this towards the back end of the video, not always on the same page. Bob Arum starting to talk about pushing a Wilder Fury 3 fight out to 2021. Frank Warren saying, well, we don't want to do that really. Tyson Fury wants to fight in 2020, so we'll talk about that as well. But just getting to a couple of their statements, and then on to a few thoughts about Dillian Whyte, because obviously Whyte has been waiting for this WBC title shot. He has sort of put his lot in with the WBC, spurned other opportunities, and even in 2019, when after he beat Oscar Rivas to become the WBC mandatory, the WBC, when the UCAN situation popped up, it sort of pushed him back a year and said, look, you can have a shot in February 2021. But Bob Arum and Frank Warren, not really interested. So Bob Arum, he said just a day ago, mandatories, smandatories. If Joshua is successful versus Pulev and Fury is successful versus Wilder, everybody will look at Fury and Joshua as the fight they want to see. They don't care about a mandatory, whether Usyk or Whyte. And then Frank Warren saying, he ain't fighting Dillian Whyte because he wants Anthony Joshua. Let's get that on. Then Dillian Whyte waits for his opportunity. A massive fight would be him against Daniel Dubois. That makes a lot of sense to me. Tyson Fury is not beholden to him. Tyson Fury is probably the biggest star in boxing at the moment, in my opinion. He's undefeated. He's been named as the #1 heavyweight in the world by Ring Magazine. He will make his choices. Him against Joshua is the fight everyone wants to see. I'm a fan and I want to see it. In my lifetime, I've seen all these heavyweights and now we're blessed with this. I want to see these two guys fight each other and no one should stand in their way. It's really important that it happens now when these two guys are at their best. It's the best heavyweight fight out there, and it would be the biggest sporting event in this country since England won the World Cup. It would transcend sport. It's not going to happen before the end of the year, but it has to happen next year. And this fight should happen in the UK. We should move heaven and earth to make it happen here. Frank Warren's statements. So there's a bit to unpack from all of that, because remember, this was about 4 or 5 weeks ago. The WBC, under pressure from the sort of fan sentiment and just in general about what was going to be happening with the what next. And Dillian Whyte engaged a lawyer too. They sort of relented and said, look, Dillian Whyte will get his shot if he continues to win, and it will be after Fury's next fight. And then it all sort of rose up about a week or so ago. So I didn't really report on it at the time because it was just reheated and recycled. We'd already heard from the WBC Dillian Whyte would be on track to get his fight next, remembering the WBC put an order in place for February 2021. But that date was starting to look a little bit shaken when Bob Arum started talking about February 2021 for Fury and Wilder 3, and we'll come to that soon. But it does seem to be there's a push on from the promoters. They're trying to lobby in public to get Dillian Whyte sort of pushed aside. And I know we've all been waiting for this undisputed fight, and this is, on the proviso, remember, that they all keep winning and that they can get into an undisputed fight, that someone doesn't come a cropper and then all of a sudden the belts start to, fracture and there's no chance for undisputed. Remembering, we've been basically waiting for this for about 3 years. There was the will they, won't they with Wilder and Joshua. Now Fury is in the picture, and his promoters are very clearly trying to make a public play, trying to get the sentiment behind, actually, please make Dillian Whyte wait. We're not interested in that fight. He should not be next. It has to be Fury and Joshua. And earlier this year, Joshua and Fury announced publicly that there was going to be a deal between the two for 2 fights in 2021. The sort of high-level specifics were agreed, 50-50 split, etc. And that's when Daniel Kinahan, Fury's advisor, or apparently now former advisor, was involved and helped broker that sort of split. But 2021 always felt a little optimistic because the obligations that both fighters had. Because remembering, Anthony Joshua's got 2 mandatories, not one like Tyson Fury, but he's got Kubrat Pulev and also Alexander Usyk. And I do note that, Arum is saying Usyk, he should be pushed out of the way, but his fighter, Kubrat Pulev, who is next in the queue, he is obviously pushing for him to get that fight. He's sort of talking the after that fight, mandatories sort of get pushed out of the way, mandatories, as he says. So he is kind of, looking after his own sort of interest here. But I guess the thing is that people often forget Tyson Fury coming to the end of his ESPN and Top Rank deal. Top Rank in particular will want to have the last fight on that deal being a Joshua and Fury fight, not necessarily a Fury and Whyte fight, because they'll probably have to renegotiate a much bigger and beefier contract for Tyson Fury, who, if he keeps winning and in really good fights, he is going to continue to command more money, and obviously the fame and prestige grow along with that. So it seemingly looks like we're going to get an undisputed fight, or at least a Joshua Fury fight at some point. But, the when is the real question, and it has been. But Bob Arum and Frank Warren are trying to really force the issue now. But whether they can actually persuade the WBC to go back on just statements they've reaffirmed a week ago that Whyte will get his shot next, it's unclear. It is a sanctioning body after all, so we can kind of expect the unexpected. They are consistently inconsistent. So if there's some sort of opportunity or loophole that they can ultimately prod, poke, or pull, they probably will. And it is that fight that we want, but you can make an argument with the order that was especially in place, for February 2021, that Dillian Whyte seemingly, you'd imagine, has got a pretty good case, especially if he were to take it to court to enforce it. I don't think he's going to get out of the way. He will be very angry if he has to be sort of shoved to the side, or even at the suggestion of that happening. And there will be a section of fans that say, look, Whyte, we're not interested in Fury versus Whyte. We want to see the big one. Why can't he go afterwards? Well, Dillian Whyte, he wouldn't sort of push that barrow. He'll be saying, look, I've waited my time. I've gone this route. Remembering he's turned down that title shot with Joshua. He turned down other eliminators. He's put all his apples in this WBC basket. He kind of wants to make it all happen now. And for him, his career, his prime, his legacy, making money, it all sort of, boils down, especially to the next year or so. And in particular, if he can get a Fury fight, it'll be a career high payday. And obviously in terms of profile, prestige, and all that sort of stuff, legacy on the line. So I know Dillian Whyte and his fans will be avidly supporting him to continue to push for what the WBC has said is already his if he continues to win and he beats Alexander Povetkin. But you have on the other side, well, we all want this undisputed fight. We've been baying it for it for some time. And it's interesting, Frank Warren saying that it has to be in the UK. They have to make it happen there. And he talks about it being massive and transcending sport, yada, yada, yada. When we've already had a clear signal from Eddie Hearn, it's likely to at least one fight to be offshore, potentially in Saudi Arabia. But the whole issue with Fury Wilder 3, Tyson Fury's promoters not on the same page. Bob Arum, really sticking to his guns that they have to have a crowd, they have to make that gate, they have to try to have it, make it as big as possible. And this is all about money as well. They want to try to recreate, much of that $17 million or 16.9, whatever it was, in terms of gate revenue from the rematch. But Frank Warren directly contradicting him and say, look, it has to happen this year. And apparently the contract has to happen by the end of this year. So, but we know those contracts can be sort of rewritten, amended, etc. Do remember that there was no third fight initially. They sort of negotiated that in as they were having the rematch. And this is why we're in the position that there is going to be a third fight as opposed to winner takes all from the rematch. So it is a situation where these guys aren't even sticking on the same page. Frank Warren saying Tyson Fury wants to fight this year, and if he can't, because, whatever's going to happen with crowds and all that sort of stuff, he would like to take another fight. So yeah, these two, not on the same page, but the message is clear with Dillian Whyte. Get out of the way, mate. We're not interested. And it begs the question, would Tyson Fury drop the WBC belt? He's previously said he won't be dictated to by sanctioning bodies. But it is a big bargaining chip, arguably the most prestigious of the 4 belts, the green belt. So, would he be willing to just sort of say, look, I'm the lineal champion, the Joshua fight's the biggest out there for me, not interested in Whyte, I'm going to drop this belt, chuck it in the bin, a la Riddick Bowe, etc., and go fight Anthony Joshua. But remembering, Joshua's got mandatories of his own, and Joshua's always said he wants to keep his belts. So there sort of is who's going to blink first in this sort of situation with the promoters and the sanctioning body. But there's already some, lines in the sand that have been drawn, but seemingly the promoters want to redraw them in their own favor, for their own fighter, for their own money-making ability. But what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.